Caitlyn Clark got a little get back at Kelsey Plum.
She was taking a shot, could not help but to drag Caitlyn Clark through the glass as she did it.
0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
The WNBA is on a hot streak. They're finally turning a...
What just happened has sent tremors across the entire WNBA. Somewhere right now, Kelsey Plum is replaying every second in her head because Caitlyn Clark just outmaneuvered her with a level of precision and restraint this league rarely witnesses. I'm still processing it, because this wasn't simple revenge. It was a masterclass in how to expose someone who tried to quietly undermine your name and credibility. And let's be clear, Plum didn't merely lose this exchange, she was strategically neutralized. Before we unpack how this situation spiraled and why it matters far beyond one comment, hit that like button if you're standing with Caitlyn, because once the full picture comes into focus, defending Plum becomes almost impossible. There are sore losers, there are sore winners, and Kelsey Plum managed to be both at once. We want to dominate them. We know we're better. We're doing this for the league. We're doing this for Caitlyn Clark. Those words weren't just competitive bravado. They were a quiet admission of reality. Because whether some players want to say it out loud or not, the entire ecosystem now revolves around Caitlyn Clark. Every contract, every rating spike, every sold-out arena traces back to her gravitational pull. To understand how this situation escalated into a full-scale power shift, we have to rewind to where the tension actually ignited.
Tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
Or her actually making comments about Caitlyn Clark's team not being at this meeting for the CBA.
This wasn't a spontaneous clash or a harmless comment taken out of context. This was rooted in insecurity, subtle positioning, and a calculated attempt to redistribute credit away from the league's most influential figure. The flashpoint came at the WNBA All-Star Weekend, a moment designed to showcase unity and progress. Players gathered under the banner of the Pay Us What You Owe Us movement, demanding long overdue financial recognition. That demand was justified. The players have carried the league through lean years, and compensation has lagged behind their labor for decades. But this is where the situation took a turn. Instead of keeping the focus on collective bargaining, Kelsey Plum shifted the spotlight. In front of cameras and microphones, she made a pointed remark about Team Clark not being present, choosing her words carefully while ensuring the message landed exactly where she wanted. She never said Caitlyn Clark's name, but she didn't need to. The implication was unmistakable. By suggesting that Clark and her teammates were disengaged from the movement, Plum framed the league's biggest star as detached and self-serving. It was a subtle narrative injection, one designed to undermine Clark's credibility among peers while appealing to veteran frustration. The problem was that the narrative collapsed under even the lightest scrutiny. Clark wasn't at the All-Star event. She was recovering, managing her own obligations, and had no requirement to perform solidarity for optics. Advocacy doesn't require attendance at every photo opportunity. What made the move so reckless was the broader context. Caitlyn Clark is not just another player. She is the engine driving unprecedented attention to women's basketball. Since her arrival, television viewership has surged. Merchandise sales have exploded. Ticket prices have climbed to levels previously unthinkable for the league. Expansion fees jumped from tens of millions to hundreds of millions in record time. To suggest that the person responsible for that transformation is somehow not contributing enough is not only disingenuous, it's strategically absurd. The reaction inside the room said everything. Cameras caught Sabrina Ionescu's expression tightening as Plum spoke, the realization setting in that a line had been crossed. Analysts immediately flagged the comment as unnecessary and dangerous. Stacey King openly questioned the wisdom of antagonizing the league's most valuable asset. The numbers back him up. Clark's presence has redefined the WNBA's negotiating position. She is the leverage point in every salary discussion, every media deal, every expansion pitch. Going after her publicly was never going to end well, but what separates Clark from most stars is how she responds to pressure. She didn't fire back with a quote. She didn't escalate the situation online. She didn't seek sympathy. She did nothing. Silence became her weapon. While others debated intent and tone, Clark continued to dominate headlines simply by existing. Brands circled. Cameras followed. The spotlight never left. And that restraint wasn't passive. It was strategic patience, waiting for the moment when action would speak louder than any rebuttal. The real counterstrike didn't come in a press room or a social media thread. It came in the form of a business announcement that reshaped the conversation overnight. Not long after the controversy simmered, Caitlyn Clark unveiled a massive global partnership with Nike. The timing was surgical. While critics questioned her commitment to the league, the most powerful brand in sports committed itself to her future. It was a reminder that influence is measured by demand, not noise. Nike doesn't gamble on optics. It invests in inevitability. As the deal circulated, it became impossible to ignore the contrast. While some players were focused on internal politics, Clark was expanding the league's footprint globally. Endorsement figures crossed into seven-figure territory. Visibility multiplied. The same industry voices that questioned her engagement suddenly had to reconcile with the reality that she was carrying the sport into rooms it had never entered before. Corporate partners weren't confused. They understood exactly who was moving the needle. Then came the moment that turned quiet dominance into a viral masterstroke. Kelsey Plum posted images from a Nike event, despite being signed with Under Armour, Nike's primary competitor. The irony was glaring. And Clark noticed. With one understated, perfectly timed comment, she punctured the entire situation. "Thanks for the Nike ad." No rant. No explanation. Just a sentence. The internet exploded. Headlines followed. Memes multiplied. And the power dynamic crystallized instantly. That single line did more damage than any extended argument ever could. It reframed the entire conflict. Plum wasn't the whistleblower exposing hypocrisy. She became the supporting character in Clark's brand narrative. From that point forward, Plum went silent. The realization had set in that she wasn't competing on the same plane. One player was arguing relevance. The other was defining it. This is what separates cultural forces from traditional stars. Caitlyn Clark doesn't need to chase validation. Her presence generates it. Every subtle move carries weight because the audience is already paying attention. That's real leverage. It's the kind of influence that turns minor gestures into major news cycles. And it's precisely why resistance to her rise has failed so consistently. The uncomfortable truth for some veterans is that Clark's success exposes structural realities. The league struggled for years with visibility, profitability, and mainstream interest. Empty arenas weren't an anomaly. They were the norm. Media coverage was sparse. Sponsorships were limited. Then Clark arrived, and the entire equation changed. Ratings surged. Jerseys sold out. Ticket prices climbed. Media deals expanded. Expansion bids skyrocketed. The growth wasn't incremental. It was explosive, yet instead of embracing that momentum, pockets of resistance emerged. Not because Clark was harmful to the league, but because she disrupted established hierarchies. She didn't wait her turn. She didn't follow the traditional script. She arrived fully formed, carrying an audience with her, and that challenged long-held assumptions about how influence should be earned. For some, that disruption felt threatening, but markets don't care about seniority. Fans don't follow tenure. They follow impact. And Caitlyn Clark's impact is measurable, repeatable, and undeniable. Every metric the league values points back to her presence. Attempting to downplay that doesn't protect the sport. It weakens it. And the corporate world has already made its decision. Investment flows toward growth, not nostalgia.
Couldn't help but to say that Caitlyn Clark didn't join in on the t-shirt discussion.
This week they wore t-shirts saying, making a statement, you better pay us. But instead of just leaving it at that, Kelsey Plum for LA had to take a dig at Caitlyn Clark. Here she is.
The t-shirt, just United Front was determined this morning that we had a meeting for. And, not to tattletale, but zero members of Team Clark were very present for that.
What this moment ultimately reveals is a crossroads for the WNBA. The league can either lean into the transformation Caitlyn Clark represents or continue to fracture under internal resistance. The attempt to contain her rise was never going to succeed because her influence isn't manufactured. It's organic. Fans show up for her. Networks schedule around her. Sponsors build campaigns around her. Those realities don't disappear because of a press conference remark. Before Clark entered the league, profitability was an aspiration, not a baseline. Expansion conversations were cautious. Media interest was conditional. The sport survived, but it didn't thrive. Now, the conversation has shifted entirely. The league is negotiating from strength. Players have leverage they didn't have before. Salaries are rising. Exposure is expanding. And nearly all of it can be traced to the surge of attention Clark brought with her. This is why framing her as disengaged was such a miscalculation. Her success lifts the entire ecosystem. Higher viewership leads to higher advertising revenue. That revenue fuels better contracts. Better contracts improve conditions for everyone. Clark is not a threat to player advocacy. She is its strongest ally, whether she's standing in a press room or not. Influence doesn't always look performative. Sometimes it looks like sustained demand. Through all of this, Clark has demonstrated a rare understanding of power dynamics. She doesn't rush responses. She doesn't over-explain. She lets timing do the work. Critics throw stones. She builds infrastructure. That's leadership at a level most athletes never reach. It's not about winning an argument. It's about shaping outcomes. The irony is that the resistance aimed at her has only amplified her position. Every attempt to diminish her importance has reinforced it. Fans rally harder. Brands commit faster. Media attention intensifies. The cycle feeds itself. Meanwhile, those who positioned themselves in opposition fade from relevance, not because they lack talent, but because they misread the moment. This story isn't really about Caitlyn Clark versus Kelsey Plum. It's about evolution versus entitlement. It's about a league stepping into its commercial prime and the discomfort that transition creates. History is rarely gentle during moments of change. But it is decisive. And right now, the direction is unmistakable. Caitlyn Clark isn't the future of the WNBA. She is its present. She is the catalyst accelerating everything the league has fought for. And the sooner that reality is accepted internally, the stronger the sport becomes. The numbers already tell the story. The audience has already chosen. The only question left is who adapts and who gets left behind as the game continues to grow without waiting for permission. Fans recognize it. Metrics confirm it. And the league is changing before our eyes.